up, ladies and gentlemen, here to teach you a little something, physics teacher, Johnny Mack. Hi everyone, I'm here to talk to you about what I do for a living and how I combat ignorance with science. So I'm hoping that I can be funny and informative, but since it's a science comedy stand-up, I'm going to say I hope I'm funny, plus or minus at least half of funny. And we're going to measure that in units of laughs per minute, and for any of you who are trying to figure that out. So I hope that joke's pretty accurate as we go along. One thing I try and get my students to understand is that they need to put uncertainties in all their measurements. And we call them plus minuses, we call them uncertainties. You might call them tolerances. So I'm kind of like an SJW. I'm not a social justice warrior, I'm a science justice warrior. Down with intolerance. So obviously you realize I'm a teacher, but if math was prey, I'm an apex predator. I'm the dreaded physics teacher. And the way that it usually goes when I introduce myself to people and I say, you know, I teach physics for a living, they say, ew, oh God, I don't understand any of it. That's, ugh, how do you do that? And I think to myself, well, what if I asked you, do you have kids? And they say, oh yeah, I have 2 kids. I go, oh, that's disgusting. Do you know how long they shit themselves? Do you know how much they cost? That's ridiculous. But my job, it does have perks. I mean, for instance, my classroom doesn't have any windows. I don't have to deal with all that crap that prisoners in prison have to deal with by law, like sunshine, guaranteed bathroom breaks. I don't need to deal with it. Okay? You know, I can, who needs cables? I can hold my piss and shit for 5 hours. Hey ladies, I can go all day long. So here's the deal, right? Why do kids hate school, right? You know, we give them homework. They have to ask permission to go to the bathroom. There's no windows in the classroom. So no wonder that they hate school. But there's one thing that they don't hate about school, and that's asking their teachers if they've ever done drugs. And I say, look kids, drugs kill dreams. Drugs kill dreams. Why do you think I'm here? So here's the deal with, you know, I mean, grading. Let's talk about grading, the bane of my existence. It's just self-inflicted harm. You're at home, you're on your 4th glass of wine, you're watching reruns of Stargate, SG-1, maybe that stupid hunting show with Buck McNeely, I don't even know, but you're sitting there and you're grading, and the first thing you grade, and you're like, oh, this is so fantastic, the world is great. I used inquiry, and I accessed the kids' prior knowledge, and we built schema, and they understand everything. The world is gonna be great. And then about 30 minutes later, when you're into your 30th lab report, your 5th glass of wine, you're starting to cry yourself to sleep gently, and you read something, in the conclusion, you read, you know, little Rory says, my data was affected by human error, more or less. Well, Rory, you've managed to say absolutely nothing. And human error? Of course it's human error. Have you ever seen a goddamn giraffe doing science? It's over here sticking its tongue mindlessly in an Erlenmeyer flask, all Skinnerianly, like, oh, there's the lettuce. It doesn't even have a freaking opposable thumb. How can it do science? It just can't. That's ridiculous. And you ask yourself these questions sometimes late at night. You're going, do I actually speak Chinese? Do I honestly speak Chinese in my classroom? And you're thinking to yourself, this doesn't make any sense. And then your cat's over here watching you drink all these glasses of wine, having a complete meltdown, and your cat's dropping Valium into your wine going, hey, speak for yourself, asshole. I do experiments on you all the time with your sleep cycle. So it's like a rock band analogy. Imagine that you were a really good drummer in a rock band, and you played all day long, you played some awesome songs, you killed it, you made lots of money on that. And then right after your sets, you have to go and watch 9 cover bands cover your material for the entire night. And you have to comment on it. And when they don't do anything right, you have to call home. which is the worst thing ever. Because when you call home and you say, Mr. So-and-so, this is Mr. Mac. I just wanted to let you know that your daughter Alex, who's the drummer in the cover band called Shitty Music, she stared at her phone on Instagram the entire time and didn't actually play any songs during the entire set. And I've developed a program to help her learn some drum fills and some left foot techniques to help her improve. And the parent responds, Alex has actually sucked at music since the 6th grade. We don't really know what to do. We just thought it might get her into Harvard. Do you have any suggestions since you're the expert? I don't know. Try. So, eventually they do learn this stuff, and so that's why you should thank physics teachers. We do get these kids to actually try in the long run. So, things you should say to us are like, ooh, that's really sexy when you do mental math. Or, man, I can't wait to get that lab coat off of you. Well, after you go to the bathroom for the first time all day, but then I can't wait to get that lab coat off of you. Or, is that a slide rule in your pants, or are you just happy to see me? So I get asked a lot, what is science? Science is the art of paying attention. It really is. Science is the art of paying attention. But I think it's cost me a few relationships. So let me give you an example. My girlfriend comes home one day and I go, hey, that's a nice new haircut. You look wonderful. But I also made the observation that she hadn't made the bed or cooked any dinner. Now see, I made the observations, she made the conclusion that I was an asshole. We're working on the scientific method together, and there's a hell of a lot of human error. Speaking of human error, we have a correlation-rich society that we live in. We have access to more information than anybody in the history of the world. And so there's a lot of people making conclusions and causation out of nowhere. And it's really not that fair. See, science, what makes it awesome is that you have correlation, which are the natural laws, and you have the underlying theory, which is the causation. And when those match, that's the best thing we know up until this point. So, let me give you an example, Hooke's Law. Hooke's Law is basically if you stretch a spring twice as much, you're going to get twice as much force out of it. But really what it is Hooke's generally accepted pattern that is sometimes true unless you stretch the crap out of a spring, and then it really doesn't obey this law at all anyway. Okay. So there's no policeman that's going to come and be like, woo, woo, pull over, you broke the law, you're an outlier. That's not how science works. There is no absolute truth for us. There is just something better than we've ever had before. And Hooke's Law actually tells you about the nature of how atoms are attracted to each other and their lattice structure, and it's actually amazing when you get down to the microscopic level of why that law is true. But in general, it isn't really truly obeyed. So I once saw a graph that showed it was a perfect correlation. It had an r squared of 1, which means the line passed through all of the data points. And on the x-axis, it said the number of lemons imported from Mexico. And on the vertical axis, it said, violent crimes in the United States. Now, we all know that lemons are only a fraction of the violent crimes committed in the United States. However, this just speaks volumes about how we make inferences that really aren't there. I mean, the basic idea is that there's more people importing lemons, and need for lemons, and there's more violent crime. All you need is two things. One thing goes up, the other thing goes up. You have a perfect correlation. Okay? So causation isn't there, and I can give you an example. How many of you are married in the audience? How many of you are married? All right, looks like about 50%, if not more. So you're on a road trip with your significant other, your spouse, your partner, and you're on a road trip and you're angry at each other. Correlation? You're in the same damn car. The causation could be two different versions. One of you thinks you know the right way to go, and the other person thinks they know the right way to go. There's two truths. But the deal is here that there's only one truth in science. At least we have the guts to pick one. It solves a whole bunch of lovers' quarrels. Buzzinga. Right? Any Big Bang Theory fans here? Yeah. All those really smart women on there, they get it. Physics is sexy. Talking about tension, friction, surfaces sliding past one another, harmonic motion. or in my case, conservation of angular momentum when there was no external torque. I mean, how do you run a slice? It's not just foreplay when you're a scientist, it's 3.14 play. 2 more significant digits if you're into that. So relationships are simple, but that doesn't mean that they're easy. So let me give you an example. I'll end on this. I'll give you a little lesson on Newton's laws. This is how I teach them. Okay, Newton's first law. These are all laws of motion. Keep that in mind. Newton's first law. Things keep on doing what they've already been doing. It's called the law of inertia. It should be called the law of Congress. Okay, the second law. People might say F equals ma. No, that's wrong. It's sigma F equals ma, and that's where you get all this vectory, mathy, really hard stuff that scares the shit out of people when they take physics. Okay, so the way I teach it is, if you're familiar with the whip and nay-nay, right? First you F, and then you A. That's all you need. And if science didn't figure out that law, we would be F'd in the A. And last, my very favorite law of all, Newton's third law. So a lot of people will say, every action has an equal and opposite reaction. Wrong. Does that mean if I'm surprised today here that somebody in Australia is nonplussed? No. Here's the simple explanation. There is a seatbelt on the toilet in the International Space Station. If you exert a force down on an object, it exerts a force back up on you. And that's why it should be called Newton's third law. Punch line. Thank you very much. My name's Johnny Mann.